Andre Agassi went nuclear on live television. Tennis has not recovered. His target was Jannik Sinner, the defending champion at Wimbledon. Cameras then caught him wearing one, a cooling vest worn before his first match. No other player in this draw needed one. Djokovic trained without it. Medvedev never touched one either. Every other seed handled it fine. So why was the champion suddenly wearing one nobody else required? Was this a coincidence or a direct response to what Agassi had just said? That question won't go away. 5 weeks earlier, Sinner led 2-0 at the French Open. Just 5 games stood between him and the third round. Then his legs gave out completely. Cramps hit first, sharp and sudden, then dizziness arrived within minutes. Nausea took over soon after. A 30-match winning streak collapsed in one afternoon. Agassi watched it happen from the broadcast booth, and he refused to soften a single word. He labeled it a flaw in preparation, then questioned Sinner's hydration live without hesitation. 8 Grand Slam titles bought him that right, and tennis fans haven't stopped arguing since. Subscribe now. What comes next changes how people see the world. Number 1. Roland Garros, May 28th. Sinner walked onto court Philippe Chatrier as the overwhelming favorite, riding a 30-match winning streak built through Monte Carlo, Madrid, and Rome. Juan Manuel Cerundolo stood across the net, a talented Argentine but nowhere near Sinner's level on paper. 2 sets down, trailing 5-1 in the third, Cerundolo looked finished. Commentators had already started drafting their preview pieces for Sinner's next round. Then something shifted. Sinner's movement slowed first. A step he normally takes without thinking suddenly required effort. His shoulders dropped. Between points he bent over, hands on his knees, breathing heavier than the match situation demanded. 15 points in a row went to Cerundolo. Sinner later admitted he felt dizzy and nauseous, his body simply refusing to cooperate as the temperature climbed toward 32 degrees Celsius. Jim Courier, working the broadcast, called Sinner's medical timeout during the third set borderline illegal under tour rules, given how theatrical the collapse appeared on camera. Cerundolo pulled away from there, closing out a 5-set victory that nobody watching could have predicted an hour earlier. Sinner walked off court having lost in a way that raised more questions than the scoreline itself. He addressed reporters afterward with unusual bluntness, describing himself as very low on energy without offering much beyond that. No detailed explanation, no specific diagnosis, just an admission that something inside his body had failed him at the exact moment he needed it most. A week passed before Andre Agassi decided he wasn't going to let it slide quietly. Speaking on TNT Sports coverage of the tournament, Agassi laid out his criticism methodically, almost surgically. He drew a direct comparison to his own career, recalling how his body clock during his playing days sat around 4 hours before fatigue set in. Hot conditions dropped that number slightly, he said, maybe to 3 hours and 45 minutes. Nothing close to the collapse Sinner experienced at an hour and 45 minutes into a match. Agassi pushed further, questioning Sinner's hydration protocol directly. He described drinking 10 to 12 liters of water before matches during his own run through hot conditions in Australia, framing it as a discipline issue rather than bad luck. His phrasing stuck with viewers. Better to have it in you and not need it than to need it and not have it. He suggested Sinner's team might need outside help, someone new to break whatever pattern kept producing these collapses. Then came the line that spread fastest across social media. There's no excuse for a player of Sinner's caliber to run into a wall that quickly, Agassi said, especially given proof exists that the same body once handled a 5.5-hour final without issue. The reaction split the tennis world almost instantly. Andy Roddick, never one to stay quiet, addressed it on his own podcast days later. He joked that Agassi wouldn't have cared if Sinner collapsed on the surface of the sun, framing the criticism as classic Agassi bluntness without much sympathy attached. Roddick's tone suggested admiration more than disagreement, praising Agassi for saying what other analysts avoided out loud. Greg Rusedski took a different angle. He pointed toward earlier speculation about a virus affecting Sinner around his Australian Open semi-final, lost to Novak Djokovic back in January, suggesting the pattern might run deeper than fitness or hydration alone. Rusetsky's argument carried weight because it exposed something important. Nobody outside Sinner's inner circle actually knows the full medical picture. Public criticism, however sharp, operates on incomplete information. Still, Rusetsky acknowledged, Agassi's comments would likely register inside Sinner's camp, given the connection between Agassi and Sinner's coach, Darren Cahill, who worked under Agassi for years before joining Sinner's team. Worth separating fact from assumption here, because the Australian Open storyline gets misremembered often. Sinner's cramping issue that January didn't happen against Djokovic. It happened 2 rounds earlier against world number 85, Elliot Spizzirri. Sinner nearly lost that match entirely, saved only when Melbourne's extreme heat policy triggered a roof closure on Rod Laver Arena mid-match. Spizzirri admitted afterward he sensed the shift coming, watching Sinner's movement deteriorate before the heat rule kicked in. Sinner himself confirmed post-match that he got lucky, crediting the cooler indoor conditions for turning the match back in his favor. Days later, fully recovered physically, Sinner faced Djokovic in the semi-final and lost a genuine tennis battle, 5 sets, no heat rule involved, simply outplayed by a 24-time major champion, still capable of producing career-defining performances. Conflating these 2 results into one heat-related failure misrepresents what actually happened. One was physical breakdown, the other was pure competition against a legend refusing to fade quietly. John McEnroe offered perhaps the most grounded take publicly, speaking during French Open coverage. He described the cramping pattern as nothing new, pointing out Sinner has dealt with this specific issue across 3 or 4 separate occasions over the past several years. McEnroe's framing suggested a team working diligently behind the scenes, testing nutrition and hydration strategies, without yet landing on a permanent fix. Not a character flaw in his view, but an unsolved physiological puzzle that keeps resurfacing at the worst possible moments. That unsolved puzzle followed Sinner directly into Wimbledon preparation. He skipped every grass court warm-up event entirely, a decision that raised eyebrows given the circumstances. Instead, he chose to play an exhibition, the Giorgio Armani Tennis Classic at the Hurlingham Club, allowing him controlled conditions rather than tournament pressure while he tested his body on grass again. Before that, he underwent extensive medical evaluation at San Raffaele Hospital in Milan, checking for anything beyond conditioning that might explain the repeated collapses. Results came back clean. No hidden illness, no organic disorder, nothing beyond what sports science could address through better preparation. Sinner addressed this directly during his pre-tournament press conference, acknowledging heat as a genuinely important topic he's actively working to solve, describing adjustments to his fitness routine as small but meaningful rather than dramatic overhauls. He avoided promising instant results, framing the entire process as long-term rather than something fixed in a single off-season block. London delivered its own complications almost immediately. A heat wave struck during qualifying week, forcing organizers to briefly suspend matches as conditions turned dangerous. This marked the 2nd consecutive year Wimbledon dealt with extreme heat disrupting play, following last year's hottest opening day on tournament record. Sinner, already on site early, was photographed using ice packs during practice sessions, then escalating to a full cooling vest as temperatures continued climbing. That image is where this entire story reignited publicly. No other player training at the All England club that week reached for similar equipment. Not Djokovic, not Medvedev, not a single seed ranked inside the world's top 20 felt the need for that level of intervention before a ball had even been struck in the actual tournament. Once the championships began, though, something interesting happened. Heat wasn't actually what threatened Sinner's title defense in round 1. His opening match against Miomir Kekmanovic turned into a 5-set battle, but the danger came from a fall, not fatigue. Blood visibly seeped through his sock during the 3rd set after an awkward slip on fresh grass, and Kekmanovic capitalized immediately, forcing a tiebreak he won to level the match at 2 sets apiece. Sinner regrouped, taking the 4th set comfortably before closing out the 5th, extending his winning streak in deciding sets and matching an all-time Italian record for Grand Slam match wins. Round 2 looked considerably smoother. Sinner dispatched Nuno Borges in straight sets, controlling long stretches of the match and breaking serve at crucial moments. No cramping, no medical concerns, no visible fatigue, even under conditions similar to what caused his Paris collapse weeks earlier. That contrast matters enormously to this entire narrative. The vest photographed during practice hasn't yet translated into an actual mid-match crisis at Wimbledon itself. So does that mean Agassi overreacted, or does it mean Sinner's adjustments are genuinely working? Neither conclusion feels fully earned yet. Mats Wilander, analyzing the tournament for UB Tennis, still picks Sinner to defend his title successfully, helped considerably by Carlos Alcaraz's continued absence due to a lingering wrist injury that has sidelined tennis's second biggest star from this year's draw entirely. Wilander's confidence comes with a caveat, though. He noted Sinner never quite found what he called a second gear during his most difficult moments this season, whether against Spizzirri in Melbourne or against Carandolo in Paris. Professor James Morton, an exercise metabolism specialist who previously worked with Liverpool FC, offered outside perspective on why this keeps happening to elite athletes specifically. Performing at high intensity in extreme heat pushes core body temperature well beyond resting levels, sometimes exceeding 39 degrees Celsius during sustained effort. Tennis, uniquely among major sports, demands this intensity across matches lasting several hours without substitution or rest periods comparable to team sports. Morton's research previously measured daily energy expenditure for elite players reaching between 4,000 and 5,000 calories during tournament weeks, numbers that highlight just how demanding proper fueling and recovery actually are at this level. Sinner now moves toward a third-round meeting against American Jenson Brooksby, a player he's beaten before but who thrives on extending rallies and testing opponents physically over long matches. Given everything surrounding this tournament, that stylistic matchup carries extra weight. Another long, grinding contest under warm London skies would provide the clearest test yet of whether Sinner's adjustments hold up when pressure and fatigue combine again. Agassi's words haven't faded from this conversation, regardless of how the next few matches unfold. They created a lens through which every Sinner performance now gets examined, every visible struggle interpreted as potential confirmation of that original criticism. Fair or not, that scrutiny isn't disappearing anytime soon, especially with a Grand Slam title actively on the line. If you want every twist in this story covered as it happens, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. This tennis season keeps producing storylines nobody saw coming, and this one is far from finished.